I want to talk about calories and get a really good understanding, not from like the scientific perspective exactly, but an overview of why it's really important to understand how calories work, how much we need, how we burn them, how they impact, oh my gosh, how we feel, our hormone levels, our gut health, and if we lose or gain body fat, and if we lose or gain muscle mass. So at this point, you have at some point tracked your calories, right? So you're able to see, okay, I'm currently eating, let's say 2,450 calories. What does that mean, right? That's the next question. So we need to look at, okay, what are calories and where should I be? And then I want you to understand that so that then you know, okay, if I want to lower or raise my calories, what do I need to do to get that there, right? Because it's our daily activity, but also how much we eat, right? It's driven through our nutrition and how much we move every day. And that's going to be the calorie expenditure as they kind of go in and out. So first though, let's think of it this way. Calories, right? Your body has to have a certain amount called your BMR to survive. So that's why it's so important that you're not under eating or fasting or not fasting, but I should say like dieting for so long, because it wrecks your body because it can't function. It's starving, right? It's not getting enough food to sustain everyday movements, right? That we have no control over. So let me explain what I mean by that. Let's imagine you are lying in a bed and you cannot move at all. For the day you're paralyzed, right? You're immobilized, you can only lay on your bed. So if you lay in your bed for 24 hours, so we're not doing any sort of movement, right? We don't require calories to move at all. Your body still needs a certain amount of calories to keep you alive with your bodily functions. So that means for you to lay 24 hours, and everyone is different. Everyone's calories are very different from age, height, and weight, are like some of the very basics of, and male, female, basics of calorie numbers. And so as you lay on that bed, your BMR, or the number that you must have enough of to sustain life, right? That's the number we're looking at, is gonna be different from me to you. So you're laying on the bed, for your body to have your heart pump, right? Your digestion, your gut to work, your bladder to work, your eyelids to blink, right? Your brain to function, all of the cells all over the place, doing all of the hormone processes, everything that happens internally that we have no control over, right? I can't control the beat of my heart, it does what it's want. Can't control necessarily the gut, it's doing what it wants. And it does that running off energy from calories. So mine is around, let's say 1,500, right? Yours maybe be 1,600. You could be 1,200. I have no idea what your number is. With that number, you do not want to eat less than that number, because that's only enough energy for your body to function. Just function. Zero movement. And I'm not even talking like an arm swing. That would require 3 more calories. If I'm talking I pull my hair up, that would require 10 more calories of energy, right? Any subtle movement, head, neck, fidgeting, all of that burns and uses calories. So when we lie motionless, and I mean motionless for 24 hours, your internal movement, that's how we can say it, requires for me at least 1,500. So I know on a daily basis, right, if I want to lose body fat, if I want to tone, if I want to get skinnier, whatever the goal is, I know that I can never go under 1,500 because that's how much I need to survive. So now let's say you're laying in bed and it's a miracle, you can stand up and walk around. Let's say you're on the second floor of a house, the second floor. So you've got maybe 1,000 steps that you can now do. So you need 1,500 calories for your body to survive laying there and functioning, plus let's say 500 more calories because now you're walking 1,000 steps. Now, why do we need that, right? Well, you need energy and calories so that your leg muscles can contract and lift up and move forward and back down, and the rest of your body can stabilize, right? Maybe you raise your arm to turn a light on. That requires a few more calories. It's any movement that you do requires energy, right? So now let's say you're back on the bed, you can lay up, and now you can go downstairs and you're walking 2,000 steps a day. Well, now your body requires even more energy because now you're going up and down stairs, which requires more muscle contraction, stabilization. You're physically walking further. So now your BMR was at 1,500, right? Your basis paralyzed for the day amount minimum. And now you're at 2,000. So now maybe you need 1,700 calories a day just to sustain all the movement that you're doing. And we're not even exercising at this point. Okay, so the more you walk, the more calories you need. Think of it as a car going from point A to B that's maybe 100 miles. It needs a certain amount of gas to get there, right? Well, if I now go point A to C, which is 150 miles, so 50 miles further, I need that much more gas because I'm going 50 miles further. Your body is the same. So when we understand, okay, the more I move during the day, and I'm not talking exercise, I'm talking just walking, daily movement. Your body needs more energy or gas in the car to move more. So if you are someone that gets 7,000 steps a day, you need more calories, just like a car needs more gas to go farther, right? If you don't move very much, right? If you have like a desk job, you're getting maybe 3,000 steps a day, your calorie number will be lower because you don't need that much. So the problem is we tend to eat meat because food is delicious and we're in social settings and we have cravings and sometimes food addictions and we just can't say no, or we can't stop, or we binge eating, or we just like what we're eating. And we aren't mindful, well, how much does my body actually need due to where my BMR is, right? My resting state, plus my steps and the moving and fidgeting and walking that I do. And then if I'm overeating past that, which most of us are, then it doesn't know what to do with it. So it stores as body fat. Now think of the car, right? If we put enough gas in the car to go from point A to C for 150 miles, but I overfill the tank with gas enough to get me to maybe point D, which is now 200 miles, well, it doesn't fit in the car, right? It spills back out. It's like, I can't handle any more gas. You're only getting me to point C, but you're putting gas in to get to point D, but I'm not going to point D. You didn't drive me any farther. Gas spills out. I wish that's what body fat did. But it doesn't work like that. The body stores it. So if you're gonna keep eating and eating over the amount that you're spending by living and surviving, plus now additional calories for fidgeting and moving and walking, which gives us our TDEE, is what they call it, it needs that much, right? And if you overeat that, it doesn't know what to do with it because you're not using it. So it just says, great, stick where we need to stick. And then that's where it is. So we need to understand that. So you need to get a baseline for how many calories not to go under. So hopefully that explains why you can't just chronically starve or diet or not eat and skip a whole bunch of meals and be like, I'm at 800 calories, why am I not losing body fat? It's because your body's not gonna let you lose body fat if it's fighting to stay survival mode, because it needs 1,400 and you're well under 1,000 or at 1,100. That's underneath how much it needs to survive. So again, keep in mind, calorie numbers different for everyone, to include siblings, age, height, weight, male and female, and now, as we've learned, activity level. So if you have, let's say, so let's talk about activity levels, because that's going to determine how many steps, right? So if there's a couple activity levels, and I'm not talking about exercise. I'm talking about just daily movement and steps. If you have a sedentary job, that means and these are rough estimates because no one has an exact number. Let's say 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. That's most of us. Like literally 99% of the clients that come into my program that I talk to are sedentary. They get under 5,000 steps a day. So you're around 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. That's desk job. That's someone that drives. You're just sitting. Your job, your daily life just doesn't require a lot of movement. That's mine. I'm sitting here at this bar all day long. I'm in the car driving between gyms. I'm in the car driving my kids. I curl up on the couch with my kids as we watch movies or we talk or do homework. I sit a lot. I don't get 7,000 steps a day, which is the minimum that we really want to target for. I have a treadmill in that room, and so I walk throughout the day. When I need a rest or a break, I get on there, or if I'm on my phone or if I'm on a call, I have to make a point. 15 minutes, 7 minutes, any minutes that I can get on that treadmill, I go do. Now it's nicer outside, so I'm gonna try to get those steps outside. I take my dog, I go on a walk with the kids. In parking lots, I park farther away. I try to come up with ways just to get some more daily movement, because the more I move, the more calories I can eat. And I wanna eat, because the more I can eat, I can build more muscle, and I'm full and I get to enjoy food. So if you don't move a lot and your calorie number is lower, keep in mind, if you're like, crap, like I'm in a fat loss with a deficit, I'm at like 1,400 calories. That's hardly anything. I want to eat more than that because that goes by very quickly. My suggestion is move more, right? Because just like the car, if you are now driving to point D, which is now 200 miles, you gotta have more gas. So you get to use it. And so it's not gonna be stored as body fat. So if you desire more calories, wanna eat more, right? Especially to build more muscle, I always suggest move more, not more exercise, walking more. And that's gonna really utilize that. Now the second, we then have a slightly active level, and that could be anywhere from 4,000 or 5,000 to like 8,000, 9,000 roughly. I would say that's like a school teacher, someone that sits half the day at a desk, but then someone that is walking around the other half, right? Out at recess, helping kids around the classroom. So if you fall into that category, if you're someone that's home during the day, maybe a mom, I would say like half your day, you're walking up and down stairs, you're in and out, chasing kids, walking to school. And so you're anywhere from 4,000 or 5,000 to 8,000 or 9,000, right? So that, because it's more active, you're getting more daily steps. Your calorie number will be 150 calories more than someone that moves less. Now, let's say you move even more. Let's say you're like 9,000, 10,000 to maybe 15,000. General parameters that we all kind of agree on. That means you're moderately active. Again, not workouts. That means daily movement, steps. So that would be like a nurse or a waitress, at a restaurant. They're on their feet 8 hours straight. You are burning through steps. So you need more calories. You're not going from in a car A to D, you're not going to F or H, right? You need way more gas to sustain all that you're doing. So that's why also, if you're dieting and your numbers are so low for calories, but you're requiring your body to go from like a car from A to H, or for 15, 18,000 steps, if you're not giving it enough calories and you're under eating, you're gonna feel like crap because your body is saying, hey, you're asking me to do all of this stuff and you're not giving me enough fuel. So that's another way sometimes we don't lose body fat because we gotta store it to utilize it for fuel. Also, when we look at stress levels, right, from not sleeping enough, stress with spouses, children, especially jobs, stress, high cortisol can come from too much cardio. High cortisol can come from too much caffeine. All of that combined with the stress, which raises cortisol of under eating, also makes us feel like crap and also can inhibit body fat loss. So we got to be very aware of what cortisol is doing. So again, that's why it's important. I stress that you've got to feed your body and fuel it because there's so many stressors we can't control, like work or siblings or kids that we're dealing with, right? But we can control how we stress the body itself. And so I can control that by giving enough calories, which is why we give you a calorie target for the day. So when people say, great, you told me to eat 1,600 and that's in a deficit so I can lose body fat, but I'm not hungry, so I'm gonna skip breakfast, that'll just put me in more of a deficit. It doesn't work that way. You're gonna mess up your hormones, you're gonna feel like crap, you're gonna stall, plateau, you're not gonna see body fat loss. So then we gotta bring you back up to the same number where we advise as coaches, right? So the macro goal that we give you is already including all of your daily steps. So when anyone says, hey, will you give me my macros? I'll ask for, well, what's your goal weight? Because that helps me set your protein because you don't need protein for body fat. So your goal weight gives me a better idea. And then how many steps do you take in a day? And then I can set that, right? Because I can plug it in for all the age, height, weight, and sex. And then I can look at how active is she? So then I know to give her just a little bit of calories or a lot of calories because she moves more. So again, when you look at those numbers and compare them to somebody else, you got to keep in mind of how much you move. Okay, so then that kind of covers, like very active would be our last tier. I don't know anybody that's very active with steps. I mean, you're talking 30,000, kind of like a construction worker, like moves all day long, lifting heavy things. They're just flying. They need a lot of calories to sustain their job. So that's how we kind of come up with calorie numbers. So that will help you understand, okay, so when I'm eating, I really need to hit my goal. Yes, because your body requires a certain amount to function, like we said, and then it will stop. Basically, it stores more body fat. It will stop burning it, utilizing it, right? Reducing it because we're not giving it enough to move. So with that understanding, you've got your calorie number. A couple things we usually come in contact with is, hey, I'm still hungry. I want more calories. So just to review, then I would suggest walk more so I can raise them. Because if I give you more calories, that's great, but there's a chance you'll also put on body fat. Because a lot of times the number that I give you is the goal number for you to lose body fat or at maintenance. And so if I increase that, right, we're now gonna come out of maintenance or above into a surplus. And so instead of increasing calories just by itself, I'll say, yes, I'd love to give you more to eat. That means you'll gain muscle strength and mass faster because we need more calories for muscle gains. But you gotta walk more to offset that to try to reduce some of the body fat, right? Because if we increase calories, we'll put on more muscle, but we could also, and we do put on a little bit more body fat. We can minimize that body fat though from coming on by walking more and eating our increase of calories with protein. So again, recap, if you want to eat more and minimize body fat gain, we're gonna increase that by protein and we're going to increase our daily steps to offset the calories that we're now adding. Now you may say your numbers As your weight changes, let's say you used to weigh 160, now you weigh 140. Well, that recalibrates how much your body needs. So then we need to adjust your macros and make sure that we give you the accurate calorie number. If you have gained weight in the opposite direction, you need to also update, right? Let your coach know, okay, this is now different. Now I need another set of macros because our weight does impact that. Our activity level also impacts that. So if you're like, hey, my macros are set for someone that gets 3,000, 4,000 steps a day, but I took your advice and I'm now working up to 7,000, 8,000, I can increase my calories a little more. Now let's talk about how we create a deficit, right? So we have our BMR, which is laying in bed paralyzed, right? And we have to have this number just to survive. And let's say it's 1,500. Now let's say I get 7,000 steps a day, and that puts me now, my TDEE, so what they call it, how much daily expenditure, that puts me at, let's say, 1,900 calories. So with how much I walk, 1,900 calories. That's maintenance. So my body's gonna stay right where it needs to be. I'm not necessarily in a surplus, I'm not gonna build a ton of muscle, but I'm also not gonna lose body fat because I'm right at maintenance, right? I have enough calories to sustain my body to stay alive, and enough calories to sustain all of my walking. So from these two numbers, then we look at, okay, you know what? My maintenance is probably 25 pounds more than I want it to be, right? This number's where I'm settled and set, 25 pounds. Now let's create a deficit. So I lose some body fat. So that's not through exercise, and not through more cardio, it's through calories of what we eat. So we can create a deficit two ways. I can increase your daily steps, which means I should give you more calories, right? It would move up, but I'm not. I'm gonna keep your calories where they are, but you're still going to walk more. And so that's going to create a deficit because your walking is going to move you to here, but I'm not going to give you more calories. So now you have a deficit because your body's saying, hey, you're moving more, but you're not giving me more calories and energy. And that's the deficit. That's where that body fat loss then will happen. Or if we're at our resting state and our maintenance here, I can create a deficit, not changing the steps, but by putting your calories lower. So if maintenance is here and I put you in a 250 deficit, you're maybe now here, right? So we're still above what our body needs to survive, but we're just underneath what our maintenance is. And this area here is your deficit. And so if you're like, hey, I'm skipping meals, and this is the goal, right? This is your daily goal with a deficit already, and then you're skipping breakfast and lunch because you think that will make you even thinner. Now you're back here and you're closer to the BMR for when you're in the paralyzed state and you're not even survival, right? And so we can then look at what kind of deficit do we want to create. So at your maintenance of what you need, and we create our deficit, I like to go anywhere from 2 to 250 in a deficit because that still allows you enough where I can see if you hit your protein every day, muscle gain, strength gains. You can still build a little bit. If you're down 500, that's a lot from maintenance. That's a big gap for your body. You're gonna have a harder time building muscle and strength and keeping muscle because you're eating so much less than what your body needs to survive, right? And so that's why if we can create a deficit, but yet keep as many calories in you as possible, that's ideal, and that's by increasing our daily steps. So when you look at your own numbers, you're like, hey, Jess has given me 2,000 calories to eat in a day. Well, I wanna eat more. Okay, to eat more and for her to raise it to maybe 2,200, I gotta walk more because that will increase my activity level. Or if you're like, I'm at 2,000 calories, but I want to lose a little more body fat, so I'm going to keep my steps at the same pace or even raise them a little bit. That will create a deficit, but I'm also going to drop my calories a little bit, right, by 250. So now you're more of a deficit and you're going to lose body fat. But if you're at maintenance, you won't lose body fat because maintenance is where you are. You've got to be in a deficit either by walking more or by eating less. If you are over maintenance, you're in a surplus, you will store body fat. Now, when we're in a surplus and we want to put on muscle mass, right? We want to build, so we go up to a 250, 300 calorie surplus. We want to do that, like I said, by adding protein. We want to make sure our daily steps are where they need to be to help offset that so that we gain mostly muscle, and you will gain some body fat. I've done that myself. We want to minimize that as much as possible so you can see, right? And it's okay to gain body fat. And then you can bring those calories back down when you've built and you're out of that phase, and then you'll be able to see the muscle as we reduce some of the body fat. Keep in mind the opposite. If you're at maintenance and you're like, hey, I want to go in a 250 deficit, you will lose muscle and you will lose body fat, right? Especially if you're in a 500 calorie deficit. So you have to be very, very, very aware that body weight is the scale. You don't know what that scale is. It's muscle, it's water retention, it's boogers, it's fat. I don't know what that scale drop is. You don't either, unless you get an in-body scan or one that gives you the actual percentages. So keep in mind, when you're at maintenance and you're in any sort of deficit, I don't care how small or big, you will lose body weight, meaning muscle and fat. So that's why sometimes as people go lower, they're like, hey, I lost 20 pounds. I don't like how I look. I thought I would. And I'll say, well, yeah, because you lost a lot of muscle. So you're just soft. You're the same look. You're just smaller, but still soft, no shape, right? Like, well, that's not what I want. The skinny fat that comes in, right? So that's when I say, well, okay, if we're at maintenance, we want to go into our deficit. We want to be at a 250 or 500 calorie deficit. That's why protein is so important. That's going to help maintain the muscle mass so you lose more body fat instead of a lot of muscle and some body fat, right? And you get the shape of the body that you want. You'll lose all the body fat and you want the shape that you want, right? That's built with muscle. So we've got to hit our protein numbers to maintain what muscle you have, and you must strength train because that is then going to continue to build and maintain even more muscle. So if we are just in a deficit, not counting or hitting our protein goals and not doing very many strength workouts, not really challenging ourselves, not really hitting heavy weights, right? Or not doing it at all, you're gonna lose weight, which is muscle and body fat. And I see that the most with people that are on drugs like Ozempic right now. Every single one I've talked to personally has lost more muscle. They're like, I have lost everything. All my gains are gone, right? And because it makes you less hungry, so you're not eating as much. And it's just the idea that, yeah, they saw 30 pounds go down, but it's muscle and body fat. And that's not bad because we can just start lifting again and eating protein again and we'll build the muscle back up. And maybe that's not been your experience. Just my experience with people that have come forward to me because they're like, crap, I've lost this muscle, help me, right? It's because they're eating less. So when we eat less, we've got to make sure anybody, regardless of what you're doing, that you're hitting your protein and your strength training with heavy weights so we maintain the shape of the body and you don't lose muscle, you just lose body fat. So that's why I always say, no, don't tell me you want a weight loss goal, right? Because that's muscle and fat. You want a fat loss goal. So we just need to understand how those calories work, how we can create deficits, what number you should have, how you can adjust it, how you know when to adjust it if we're walking more or the scale changes. And because those numbers, the amount of calories are going to be different. So you'll have your daily calorie goal that your coach will give you, that I will give you, that's, let's say, 1325. And you're like, wow, 1325 is a low number. Keep in mind, the smaller you are, right? These are some of my last thoughts. The smaller you are, the less calories you need. So someone that is 5'1" and I'm almost 6 feet, let's say we walk the exact same amount of steps in a day. We're the same age, we have the same job, we walk the same amount. Her calories will be less than mine because she is smaller. So the smaller, more petite you are, the less calories you have, right? And this is generally speaking. The larger that your body is, I'm 6 feet tall, I'm a lot larger than that, right? You're gonna need more calories. And so just remember, that's one thing to look at, that not everybody, you'll hear a coach say, well, you should never put someone at 1,300 calories. Well, I'm like, if they are 5 foot or 5'1", 120 pounds and sedentary lifestyle, which means 3 or 4 or 5,000 steps a day, they don't require much calories because their body is teeny. There's less to feed with energy, right? And they're not moving. They're okay on 1,300 calories. That's why you can overeat and put on body fat so quickly, just because it's such a small number already. So in that case, if you're like, these are low numbers and you're a little bit lighter weight or shorter on the height, increase daily steps, right? Because the more you walk, like we talked about, the more calories I can give you, and I can pull you from 13 up to 1,500 or 1,600 just because you're walking more, and then you'll take those calories and you'll use them instead of storing them as body fat. So I hope that explains a few ways of why calories are important, why walking is important. Now, when we have exercise, last thought, strength training, cardio, group classes, all those things, right? Those are added calories burned. Don't think of those, don't formulate them into your daily, hey, if I eat this much, but my calorie watch said I burned 600 on the elliptical, do I minus that? Nothing. They don't even correlate. So take exercise for the means of heart health, right? Cardio. You enjoy the activity like biking or swimming. Strength training changes the shape of the body, makes you stronger, better functional movement, gains confidence, right? Group classes, they're fun, they're active, we get moving, right? All those things are for those reasons. That's why we exercise. Calories burned are just an added bonus. Don't worry about tracking them or adding them back in or out of your calories, or how does that impact, right? Because I said step count impacts your daily calories. Exercise, we don't mess with. I take that into account with what you're doing on my strength program. I know that. When you're strength training though, you burn so few calories because it's slow, controlled, low heart rate. I mean, I only sweat on leg day, right? We burn very few calories strength training. And so it makes a small dent. So that's why we just say they're added bonus calories. The purpose, I mean, literally when I say it's 5 to max 10% calorie burn of the day from exercise, it's generally 5. I'm talking like the very active elite athletes that can burn 10%. The average is 5%. That is a drop in the bucket. So don't go to cardio or more exercising because you're like, I need to lose more body fat, right? We control it with our calories, our daily steps, with our nutrition that we just talked about. So use that for all those other reasons for exercise. And I want to make sure that we have a very healthy mindset. Most importantly, which we'll talk more about later, that if you have a piece of cake and you've binged on the weekend and you had a whole bunch of food that are over your calories that you think you shouldn't be eating because it's so much sugar, blah, 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 we automatically say, I need to go exercise it off. I want to separate that mindset, right? Because as we've learned what these purposes are, how the body works with calories and all those things, we just need to adjust, right? Enjoy the cake, move on the next day, and eat a little bit less to make up for it. That's all. No guilt. No way. I don't want cardio or exercise to be a form of punishment from things that you ate. It's not that. They're two very different things we do for very different goals. Complementary, they are perfect because they're going to give you the body shape and how you feel and move, right? And the nutrition will help fuel that with all that you're doing. Because you've got to be eating enough calories to gain muscle, like we talked about. The farther you are on that deficit, the harder it's going to be to gain muscle. So that's one thing to look at. That's why they say you can't really build muscle really well and also lose body fat. I found that my lower body was very hard to grow. I'm very, very, very long legs, and I've always had a very small butt. It's also my body type as an ectomorph. I had to increase my calories by hundreds, and I would do it and I'm like, still no results. I'd increase again, I'd increase again. I finally got to a point to where I've seen really great growth. Have I put on body fat with it also? Yes, but that's what I've wanted because I wanted to build stronger, and then I'll adjust it and I'll eat a little bit less. Still strength training, still hitting my protein, and some of that body fat will fall back off. So it's just a fun game of seeing what works for you. So the total calorie number will be a huge deal in what you're doing and how you feel, move, or look. We'll break that, another time we'll chat about the different macros and how those can make you feel and the different hormones that we have. We just want to have an understanding of why we have a certain number to target for every single day.